This is Kyle from Atala, and you're geeking out with Gear Gods. So in the studio, when I'm overdubbing tracks, each guitar take will be 4 tracks. So you have 4 mics, 2 amps, and then I'll do 2 to 3 takes with my main guitar, which is this Gibson SG with the lace matte pike signature series. I'll do like another 2 or 3 tracks of guitar with this other SG that I set up completely different. It's still the same guitar, Gibson SG, but it has Seymour Duncan Invaders. These pickups are probably some of the heaviest pickups on the planet. Basically, this guitar sounds so heavy and so low, people tell me it sounds broken. But to me it doesn't sound broken, it sounds just right. Like, it's really low, really muddy, really sludgy. I use it in the studio on every song for extra texture as far as the guitars go. I'll play the exact same thing that I play with the other guitar, but I'll double it up with this guitar just to provide another layer of sound. Again, because I'm trying to create with my guitar a wall. Like, I want a wall of sound to make up for the fact that I'm the only guitar player in the band. I really like to create huge soundscapes out of my guitars. As far as my guitar sound, I do bring a lot of melody in with the vocals and stuff like that, and also screaming and more aggressive sludge sounds. But as far as the guitar goes, it's like I want to be really sludgy and really heavy, because the things that I'm playing are fairly simple and they rely on heaviness. And most of what makes my heavy is the gear that I use. Like, I'm very much a gear nerd. I use orange half stacks with vintage 30 speakers, and the amps that I use are 50 watts. I use the Rocker Reverb. So I'm pushing 50 watts with 30 watt speakers, so it's able to crack. The tone will crack and provide a more aggressive tone at a lower volume. I crank volumes though. I'll play on stage at like 6.5. It's low, it's heavy, but it will fill a room, and that's because of the orange amplifiers. I use one pure distortion, all the gain, all the distortion out of my amp. So I have the distortion knob right here cranked up to like 7.5. I have my low end at 9, so I'm getting as much low end as I can. My mids are like at 8, and my high tone is at like 6. So I'm not doing a mid sweep like a typical metal mid sweep here. I'm trying to get a lot of low end because I want people to feel it in their gut, like real doomy. I have no reverb here, and I'll usually crank this at 5 to 6.5 depending on room size. If I'm in a smaller room, I'll play at 5 because I don't want to make people's ears bleed. But if it's a bigger room and I could get away with cranking, I'll crank it to 6.5. So that one's pushing the bottom, pure gain. The top amp up here, I'll run at the same volumes. I'll go from 5 to 6.5 depending on the room size. My gain is about at 5 on this one, and I'm running the dirty channel as well. But on this one I have the bass all the way up, I have the treble to about 7, and the mids at 5. So I have like the metal mid sweep on this top amp right here. So this is set up like pure sludge metal mid sweep, not a tone for your grandma. And then on top of whatever gain I'm getting out of this amp, it's already pretty dirty when I turn it on like this. On top of the distortion from the amp, I have the Little Big Muff Electro Harmonics pedal. The greatest distortion pedal. Anything that says Big Muff is probably just amazing to... It's not just a clever name. It's the thickest, heaviest tone. So I have the volume set up about 6.5, and then the tone is leaning just past the halfway point to like 4.5 on the low side, more towards low tone. Set it up real low. I want my guitar to sound like a bass, and this is a huge part of it. And then the sustain is here just to have infinite. I like to just hold notes and drone on real heavy stuff, and the sustain helps make that possible. As we're going backwards, here's my splitter. One side of the splitter goes to the top amp through the Big Muff. The other side goes to the bottom amp, and it's all amp, no extra distortion on top of that. And then as we go back, everything from this point back all goes to both amps. When I get into the jammy single note stuff, it goes through this Boss digital delay. I have it set up like a slow delay with lots of feedback. When it comes on, it just really gets trippy and spacey through this digital amp. This is the 720 stereo looper from Electro Harmonics. I use this pedal a couple times a night normally on really jammy psychedelic parts. And what's cool about this pedal is you can set it in reverse, so it will reverse the riff that you play and play it backwards with really trippy, like satanic sounding stuff once you reverse it. And then you can put it at half speed of what you're playing. It's really cool because it provides atmosphere. And then right here you have the level. When you're making these noise tracks out of here, I don't make them. You can preset them and then just hit the start loop and it can start on its own, but I don't do that. I build the loop live. So I'll record a riff, let it go through here, and then get that loop set up, and then on top of it I'll hit my jam, and I have the volume down to like 3.5, so that way it's at a lower volume than what's coming from my guitar. So I build a loop for atmosphere underneath during some of the psychedelic jams, and then a lot of times that will be going through the delay. So I get a weird loop going through the delay, and it's just providing this awesome atmosphere, and then I'm playing on top of it. The same thing with the freeze pedal. I'll come into a jam, I'll hit one chord and then hit this freeze pedal. This is an Electro Harmonics E1 Nano freeze sound retainer. I have that level at like 3 also, and I have it set up to like slow as far as speed, so it just sets up a really slow drone in the background that also adds to the atmosphere. So sometimes under my jams, just to fill up space, because I don't have a rhythm guitar player, I set up these loops of noise tracks that will play at the same time, and then I just come playing right over them. But the noise tracks are really neat because they're going through my delay, then they're getting split up. But that's what makes that happen, is all that trippy stuff. On the beginning here is my Boss chromatic tuner. Just keeps you professional on stage. There's nothing worse than a guitar player tuning full volume pre-show. You know, well, there is one thing worse than a guitar player tuning full volume pre-shows. 2 guitar players and a bass player all tuning through their amps loud. Mute your guitar and you can tune silently so you're not killing the crowd, and then get to work.